Okay, so today I'd like to go through a very quick video on using data along your customer journey. Now, the first comment on this point to make is that we're not just collecting data for its own sake. We're collecting the data for sales or sales support to try and understand how we can help and how we can get more sales as a result of that. So the key consideration is, what do we need to consider when we're looking at this particular topic? I always start with the customer journey. Now, this is something that happens for every company as to how they actually buy from you. It's not just happening online. It's not just happening on your site. It's happening offline, online, on your properties, on other properties. In meetings, all sorts of activities are happening in order for somebody to become a customer of yours. And defining that first is the most important step. Then we can start looking at it and seeing, okay, which of these events happen on your website? Because then that's something we can begin to track. Now here we define 10 events, and most companies it's not this number. I've seen some who just have one, they become a customer or asked for a demo or requested information. But we try and get as many as we possibly can on here. What I like to see is a few events on each step of the process. So the lead generation, lead to sale, and after sale. It's nice to see that because then you can follow along where your website fits into your overall business. Now, one I'd like to just focus on right now, and it's for illustrating purposes as to what kind of data we would like to get. And if we take one which is becomes a customer, which is quite a common one for everybody, when you get customers like this, certain things I'd like to know. The first thing I'd like to know is regarding events and what happened before they became a customer. Another thing is the traffic source. Another thing is timing. So let me go through each one of these now in more detail. So as soon as someone becomes a customer, things I would like to understand is what events and how many events do they do before they become a customer. An event can be, for example, request information. It can be visit your site. That's the first event in many cases. But I'd like to know how many took place before they became a customer. Is there any pattern? So, for example, did 80% undertake 2 of the same events? The reason for that is we can then see how can we improve? How can we add more value on those events in order to accelerate the purchase process? The other thing I'd like to know is, what's the first event customers go through? So they became a customer. What's the first thing they did in the site before that? So that could have been they visited your site. It could be that they made a request immediately. But I'd like to know what that is, because it tells you how early in the customer journey are you involving your prospective clients. And then what percentage have no recorded events at all? So basically they come out of nowhere and they just become a customer. Again, that helps us to understand the role of your website, but also the role maybe of social, the role of offline, so you can begin to understand the sales event in itself. Another important thing is traffic source. So when someone became a customer, where do they come from? Now, a lot of the time, this could be direct traffic. In other words, they typed in your URL and went and bought because they knew exactly what they wanted. In some cases, it might not be. It could be social. It could be from a link you gave them. It could be from your email. But again, let's understand what is the source of the traffic when they became a customer. The other important source I want to know is, before they became a customer, they landed on your site at some point. What was the source of that traffic? The reason for that is, if, for example, social is a good source for the initial contact point, then we need to do more of that. If it's search, if it's from Google search, then we need to do more of that or expand it from there. And you get numbers like this. Direct traffic accounts for maybe 70% of those events. The first visit of people who have become customers was via LinkedIn, for example. And in total, social is the source of 60% of the first events. So understanding this helps us understand how people find us, how they engage, And this is the important aspect. It's not how everyone finds us, it's how customers have found us. And they're much more valuable than just regular visitors. The other thing I'm really interested in is timing. So how long does it take for a customer to become a customer? So maybe they visited our site 3 months ago, and now 3 months later they became a customer. What is the average? Is it 1 day? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? That tells us a lot about the purchase cycle. It also tells us a lot about, are we engaging with potential customers late in their customer journey? The variation there is also important. You may have 2 or 3 segments. So you might have longer term customers who contact you very early in the purchase journey, and there might be shorter term ones ready to buy, just found you, and then purchased. That would be a series of actions for you to try and see how can you engage with those earlier and get a bigger market share. Here you can get things like 20% or 25% of those who converted on that day. It was their first recorded visit to your site. 20% or 25%, and just as an example here, it took them 9 months from the first visit to then become a customer. These things matter because that tells us a lot about the length of the customer journey, the variations along it, and those are things we can begin to act on. I'd also look at, in the last category, which pages people went to visit. How long did they spend on those pages? Because that'll tell us a lot about their preparation beforehand. So using analytics along your customer journey, the key here is define what's important to you. If you don't know how people buy from you, you can't really measure it. So we need to understand how they buy. You can use analytics to actually help you with that process, and then you define what's important. You measure what you can action. Nice to know is all very well, but I want to know what I can take an action on. So different traffic sources, I can basically then increase my activity on those traffic sources. Important events that happened before they became a customer, I can make them better, get more of them. Timings, if I'm expecting clients to buy in 9 months after the first visit, I would have a different approach than if, for example, they're buying within a month or a week or same day. Very different ad copy, very different website copy, very different postings and content planning. And lastly is, once we know what the important events are, once we start measuring things we can action, we can monitor changes for improvement. And this is where analytics and data help support business growth. Thanks for watching. We'll do a few more of these videos, and any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or take contact with us.